This video right here is from yesterday, Yahoo Finance, the BitGo CEO talking about Trump buying Bitcoin and the stockpile and everything. So let's take a look at this.
Bitcoin currently trading over $98,000 following this morning's CPI print, which comes amid a positive correlation between Bitcoin and stocks in recent months. That's one of the themes that Yahoo Finance has been focusing on this week. We want to bring in Mike Belshi. He's BitGo's CEO. And Mike, when you take a look at the price action, the volatility surrounding Bitcoin, questions about what it's going to take in order to sustain that momentum and movement here above the $100,000 threshold, what do you think?
Well, everything is aligned to do well. The markets move when they move. I know people get excited about, hey, it's going to head under here, it's going to take off there. I think we're extremely well positioned given the regulatory changes, given the adoption that's been going on. So I wish I could give you an exact date when everything kind of is unimpeded to go forward. But in general, the industry is anticipating that this is going to be a good time for Bitcoin.
Well, one of the things that the industry is anticipating is more favorability among some of the incoming regime that's been selected. And specifically, as we think about the SEC chair position, outgoing CEO, or outgoing SEC chair, I should say, Gary Gensler, spoke to Yahoo Finance about his time in the position. And he also offered some words of caution for crypto investors. I want to play this clip and get your reaction on the other side.
You need fundamentals ultimately. Momentum can only carry you so far. And so I think for any investor listening, you really want to think through this. You have to question, what is their true use case? What is their value proposition?
Gary Gensler is such a snake. There's not a lot of people on the planet that know Bitcoin better than Gary Gensler. You know what I mean? He's still saying this dumb stuff, man. It's just, these people are reptiles, man.
So how do you anticipate that things will shift under Paul Atkins?
Well, look, okay, for one, Gary Gensler has, for some reason, decided to take a war against crypto. I don't know if you saw the case, the Coinbase case where the judge came out yesterday, day before yesterday, I guess now, scathing in the SEC's handling of that case, clearly holding back the industry for no good reason. Mr. Gensler wants to talk about use cases. Bitcoin is the strongest use case. It's a store of value. Unlike any other, it's a monetary system, which is frankly a hedge against the dollar because, the government here has had a really hard time containing costs. And while we're all optimistic that the new administration may be able to really severely, trim its spending with the Doge efforts, I think it's an exciting time for sure. It's unclear if they can really bring the machine into a taming mode where they can bring the spending materially down. And Bitcoin is a monetary system where it's a fixed supply, so you just don't have to worry about somebody deciding to spend the money, create a bunch of extra supply that wasn't anticipated.
I love that. I'm very excited about Doge. I know this is Fiat talking about, but again, we have to buy Bitcoin with Fiat. I am so looking forward to see what Elon Musk and Vivek does. I'm going to have a special segment on that once Trump gets in office, hopefully, God willing. Because the less we spend on nonsense and BS, that's more extra money we can have for Bitcoin. That's how I look at it.
I guess how much of the optimism, just from your view, for the incoming Trump administration, what we're expecting on a regulatory front, what we're expecting just in terms of Bitcoin strategic reserve and some of those other ideas that have been floated from the incoming administration, how much of that has been priced in, at least in the short term? And if not, what kind of growth could that potentially unlock here for the sector?
Well, we've had 4 years of unprecedented anger against our industry from regulators that have not been acting like regulators. So what's a regulator do? A regulator has a list of rules which are set up based on a set of legislation, and they're supposed to evenly handle those regulations against all types of potential licensees.
They're not acting like regulators. They're acting like dictators.
And they're supposed to say, did you do A? Did you do B? Did you do C? And you need to work a little bit more on C, and let's help you figure that out. And the regulatory system hasn't been doing that. And it's not just the SEC, it's the OCC, it's the FDIC. And this is now documented and very clear. So that's 4 years of pent-up demand for an asset class, which of course just a year ago had the hottest ETF, the Bitcoin ETF, in the history of ETFs, demonstrating that there is massive demand institutionally for these types of products. We're going to continue to see that globally as well. Now what gets to happen is all these businesses come in, they can start to build quickly and easily. They can get the regulatory licenses that they need. And in spite of what some of the naysayers say about crypto, actually this is some of the best law enforcement that we have of any asset class because it is on a blockchain, because there is more digital capabilities. So this is going to be the safest asset classes that we have. And now we're unimpeded. We can move forward.
Mike, when we think about the strategic Bitcoin reserve, that's certainly gotten a lot of the discussion on the campaign trail. And now it's going to kind of turn into a show me story here for many of the holders out there. I mean, I certainly didn't have Scottie Pippen tweeting about this strategic Bitcoin reserve on my 2025 bingo card. I didn't have Satoshi Nakamoto visiting him in a dream in my 2024 bingo card either. But all these things considered, it's now going to have to come to fruition at the end of the day. How do you see this taking shape?
Well, I disagree that it has to come to fruition. I know there's some excitement about it, but I think actually, if there's one guy that doesn't need a Bitcoin strategic reserve, it's the U.S. Treasury. I mean, I'm a little bit counter on this one. Look, the benefit of being the world's reserve currency, and now I'm going to talk for the dollar here a second, is it's an incredibly strong and stable currency relative to other fiat currencies. It's not as good as Bitcoin in terms of retaining value over time, but relative to other fiats, it is.
Yeah, he's right. I know we don't like to hear that, but he's right. Again, in the United States, it's getting his ass kicked. Okay, we know that. Okay, the U.S. dollar. But if you go take a U.S. dollar to Canada, sorry, Jor, El Salvador, anywhere else, you're going to get your more purchase power. This is why I tell people, man, if you are a Bitcoiner in America, you have it made here, guys. You are so lucky to get 1,000 Satoshis for $1. Me and Jor talk about that. Look how much, and Canada's not too far behind us, but look how much any other country has to spend on their dollars to buy the same amount of 1,000 Satoshis that we have. So again, I know you guys don't like the fiat talk and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, the US dollar is the cleanest shirt and the dirtiest hamper. And if you are a US citizen, your dollar goes way farther than other people, and you are so blessed to get as many Satoshis you can for that dollar.
So who would want a strategic reserve? Actually, I don't think the US government needs one, because the US actually is the reserve currency and should focus on maintaining that capability. Other countries already have started using the dollar as a reserve years ago. El Salvador is one of them. Panama is one of them. They fixed their currency to the dollar because that was a better reserve for them. They should consider Bitcoin reserves and fix it to the Bitcoin instead of the dollar, because that would be a better reserve for them. So look, I think there's too much optimism about a Bitcoin reserve generally, but I don't think that's going to matter. And I completely disagree with the statement that like we're somehow pegged to either we have a Bitcoin reserve or the Bitcoin price can't go up. I mean, I just don't see that.
So
Completely agree with that. Now, again, if the United States of America, which again, we looked at the betting market, it's about 70% chance that it will, but the 30%, 25, whatever percent it doesn't happen, it doesn't mean Bitcoin is going to crash and we need it. You know what I mean? It's going to help a lot, but I completely 100% agree with what he's saying.
do you think there is a downside risk if we don't see then the reserve that's been campaigned on and been talked about and to some extent has been factored into the price action that we've seen to this point?
I completely disagree with him. These pundits and these journalists don't know what the hell they're talking about. It's not been priced in yet. Okay. If it was priced in, if the US government, Donald Trump's knowledge of Bitcoin, how much Bitcoin he has personally, what they're going to buy in the future, the 200,000 a year, which I think they're going to buy more, and then the flood of all the other countries buying, and then the companies and all that, if that was priced in, we'd be at $1 million right now. So I completely disagree with this idiot.
I don't think there's been any promises of a Bitcoin reserve. I think there's been people that don't really understand what reserves are getting excited about having Bitcoin as a reserve. But when you really think about it, what does that mean? Sure, I guess I'd love to have the government buy some of this scarce asset, but whether that's going to happen or not, I don't know. In terms of Bitcoin's ability to move forward, look, it's global adoption to some degree. Go back to what Gary Gensler just said, right? It's about having use cases that people want and continue to use. If that continues to happen, of course, it's unimpeded for the price action of Bitcoin on the go forward.
All right. It certainly seems like Trump has confirmed what those plans might look like, but we'll see exactly if this does come to be. Mike Belshe, thanks so much for taking the time here with us today. BitGo CEO.
Yeah, that was a really good interview. I completely agree with what he said. He was just so spot on. That journalist was an idiot. But again, he's a lamestream media guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But you notice more and more of the mainstream or the lamestream is talking about Bitcoin because they don't have no choice. They have to. It's here now.